Urania butterfly, the first one. Born in 19 p.m., died in 44 a.m. Urania was born into a family of weavers. She lived along with her grandmother and her mother named Darlene. From childhood, her grandmother taught her how to weave, and at age 10, she was already weaving her own clothes. An independent girl and at the same time dreamy, Urania spent most of the nights on the roof of her house, watching the stars and bordering in the moonlight the things that came into her imagination. On her 14th birthday, she argued with her granny, who said that her embroidery was a worthless waste of time and line. Urania fled to the place near the river where she always went when she wanted to be alone, and there she finished her white kitten embroidery until she fell asleep. She woke up at night, and upon returning, she found her village during a monster attack, which ended with the fire of 5 p.m., where she lost her mom and her grandma. Urania fled into the forest carrying her embroidery, the only memory she still had. When Urania's legs would no longer carry her further, she dropped to her knees and looked up at the starry sky, begging for help. A shooting star cut through the sky and fell into the cornfields a few yards from where she stood. In the depths of the crater she found a meteorite, which had a shimmering butterfly-shaped crystal. When she touched it, Urania received her butterfly emblems on her cheeks. On the same night, Urania faced 3 monsters that surrounded her. She was saved by the godmother baby, who came to life after one of Urania's spells bounced and struck the embroidery. Urania fainted soon afterwards from shock and weariness when using magic the first time in her life. I watched everything from a distance, and without interference, I needed to know how far Urania was able to get. We met each other the next morning when she woke up. I admit it was nicer than I'd hoped it would be. She did not freak out or had a denial attack. On the contrary, she was very understanding when I came to explain who I was and what I was doing there. You asked for help, and she came, I said, pointing to the crystal, and my job is to help you reach your full potential. As discussed in the chapter about the Munipendents, Urania decided that she would protect her people when she returned to the village and found it decimated for this. For this, she needed to find a way of using the crystal without cutting or burning her hands. Then, using materials found in the debris of her house, she mounted the wand by attaching the crystal to the end of a knitting needle and tying a ribbon bow. Urania proved a dedicated student, practicing magic morning, noon, and night, stopping only to eat and sleep. Urania's spells were pretty basic, from bursts of energy to simple levitation spells. Compared to what is done today, her spells were not at all exceptional. You can still find some of her spells on the basic chapter of the spellbook. The spellbook was originally her mother's accountant book, which was one of the few things to survive the fire. It became special when Urania went to write down the spells she learned by using the magic fluid released by the crystal ink. She defended the village relentlessly between 5th and 2nd year of BM. In 4 BM, a small group already helped her by defending the village. The humans began to call her Queen Butterfly in the same year. This title came obviously due to her cheek marks, her wand, and her muverty wings. Between the years 4 and 3 BM, a rough wooden and earthen construction was erected on the slopes of the Great Muni Rock, which would later become known as Urania's Fort, a place that would serve as headquarters during the Independence and later as the royal seat and home of the newly crowned monarch. One of her first acts as queen was to name 6 ministers to aid her reign. These 6 were the generals of Urania during the Munipendence, and from them the noble houses of Muni arose. In year 2 AM, Urania married Falcon Redbird, whom she had relations since 5 BM. Falcon was a red-headed, spontaneous boy who had eyes that were precise and alert as birds of prey, and could see enemies on the horizon, so he and his family were renamed Redbird. The wedding marked the opening of the Queen's Tower, the first stone structure of Butterfly Castle. Due to fire of 5 BM, Urania developed trauma by fire. To keep the place warm during the winters, the warm waters of a nearby thermal region were channeled through the walls and rooms. The fireplaces were only built after the death of Urania. In the first 3 years of her reign, Muni had grown remarkably fast around Butterfly Castle. The village was now a town. Ships and galleys from neighboring kingdoms were already passing through Waterston Port. She also established that all the castle's employees would be paid employees and made slavery and servitude a crime. The reason is a simple fact that their ancestors were servants who had fled their masters. In 4 a.m., at age of 23, Urania gave birth to her first princess and her heir, Selena Butterfly. The first princess of Muni, a blonde girl with bunnies on her cheeks, and at 10 a.m. was born her second daughter, a girl with red hair and question marks on her cheeks, called Joachina Butterfly. Between the intervals of the duties of Urania found time to weave. She herself wove her royal dresses and her daughter's clothes. Although now Muni had gotten its own knights, Urania didn't stop defending her kingdom herself when possible. Monster attacks were really rare and not as threatening as they were years ago. In 16 a.m., Queen Urania ordered the construction of a special room. It should be large and above all comfortable. This room became known as the Murity Room, and it exists to this day. Urania built it so that when the princesses reached this stage of life, it would be passing through with tranquility and structure. The room was first used 2 years later. When Selena turned 14, she would inherit the wand. Urania made this decision because it was on her 14th birthday that she found the crystal. When the day finally arrived at 18 a.m., Urania applied an enchantment to the wand, so that it changed its appearance according to the personality of its new owner. This tradition would begin there, and forever would remain so. In 22 a.m., a tragedy happened in her life. Joachina, then 12, died after falling from a tower of her room. Royal mourning was decreed for a week in Muni in honor of her daughter. Urania ordered Joachina's statues, sculptures, and busts to be scattered throughout the castle, as well as all the messages she left every morning. Urania put an end to her reign in 25 a.m., aged 43, after Selena's marriage to Roderick Flowers. Although she was no longer the queen, Urania continued to have influence in the court, helping her daughter from time to time. Urania would still live to see her granddaughter Estelaria inherited her wand in the year 42 a.m. On her deathbed, Urania performed her last royal act. She named me Sir Glossaryck of Terms, honorary knight of Queen Butterfly of Muni. My thank you gift for being with me all these years, she told me. Urania died of natural causes in 44 a.m. She was 63 years old. Her body was buried in the crypts beneath the Butterfly Castle. Muni and its citizens wept over the death of Urania, their first queen, their first heroine.